Well, folks, it's finally happened. Nikola is deciding to raise $400 million in an at-the-market sale offering over the next couple of months. In this video, I want to give you guys the lowdown as to why Nikola stock tanked over 10% in the past couple of trading days and what has been going on with some of the dealer and supplier announcements around Nikola, because I can assure you there's been a lot of interesting developments in the EV space that I think we need to cover immediately. But as usual, guys, before we get into it, make sure to drop me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So the first thing we want to address is, why are Nikola and Lucid deciding to raise more money over the past week or so? Well, I don't think it should be of any of a surprise, because both of these companies are growing at insane rates when it comes to their capital expenditure. So it's no surprise that these businesses will need more money to be able to address their massive total addressable market over the next decade or so, especially given the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to be a massive tailwind for the sales, revenue, and business of all these companies. But I'm sure you guys are wondering, why have the stocks reacted extremely negatively for both Nikola and for Lucid? Well, the simple reason for that is because markets try to price in future dilution today. Right now, the dilution is not actually taking place, and that is not what has caused the stocks to go down, except it's simple future dilution that markets are trying to price in. And so as an investor, this is an opportunity if you're a long-term visionary on either of these companies. And it's one of the reasons why I ended up buying a little bit of shares in Nikola just yesterday when the stock tanked 9% on the news. And the interesting thing is that Nikola didn't just announce this. There was actually 3 different catalysts that Nikola had announced that really resulted in this share price decline. You see, first things first, Nikola also ended up starting the commencement of their exchange offer to buy out Romeo Power. Now, I've already discussed how this is a very good thing for Nikola Motors, because they're going to be bringing in their capabilities to manufacture and design these battery modules completely in-house. And they're also going to be doing that at a very cheap price, because RMO stock has been going down the drain for the past year or so. But also what we also had happen is that Nikola announced a leadership transition where Kerry Mendez is now going to be the president of the energy business of Nikola, and Pablo Koziner is going to be the president of the commercial business of Nikola. Now, for those that don't know, Pablo Koziner right here joined Nikola in 2020, I believe, and he came from Caterpillar. And essentially, he was the president of the commercial and energy businesses at Nikola. But now, essentially, what they're doing is they're consolidating both these roles and diversifying them into 2 different specific leadership positions. I definitely think this is a right step in the right direction, because Michael Lowscaler clearly knows how to run a big company, and it looks like he understood the task at hand by separating this very important role into 2 extremely talented individuals. For those that are not familiar with Kerry Mendez, he is actually one of the most popular trading individuals in the business, and he's been in the energy markets with BP for over 12 years, since 2006. He has a lot of experience in trading, energy supply, commodity markets, and renewable energy and whatnot. And since he's been at BP for 12 years, he's gained a lot of experience about the supply chain issue of dealing with fluids and obviously explosive fuels like hydrogen, and how to get their customers in check, and also how to refine it and create a good market around the fuel, which will help Nikola in 2023 and 2024 when they try to roll out their hydrogen fuel cell trucks. And as you can see, he also has a degree from Harvard, which obviously is a very good thing and an impressive feat, especially since he's doing the AMP program there after graduating with an MBA in finance from the University of Calgary. But regardless, if we now move on over to understanding the share offerings that Nikola and Lucid are doing individually, as you can see, Nikola is deciding to go the route of an at-the-money offering for $400 million worth of new stock, whereas somebody like Lucid is going with a more diversified shelf registration offering to issue $8 billion worth of new stock over the next 3 years. And if we now move on over to the SEC Edgar page and actually look at the SEC filings that Nikola has filed, as you can see, they filed 5 different ones in just one single day, which means that investors had very little time to digest all this information. And as a result, I'm not surprised that the stock declined in the way that it did. And as a result, I saw that as a good buying opportunity because of my longer term bullish thesis. But if you actually look at the SEC registration files that Nikola filed for their $400 million offering, they filed the 424B3 forms, which are essentially a form to amend prior SEC registration statements. Now, what exactly is a registration statement? Well, essentially, a registration statement is something that Nikola has to file with the SEC to be able to issue more stock in the future. Not immediately, but in the future. And those shares or stock can be issued in the form of shares, bonds, or warrants, whatever it may be. It could even be in the form of options. But obviously, options are more for insiders, not for external investors. Essentially, this Form S3 allows Nikola to be able to raise money in the future instead of having to immediately come up with a registration statement, which would be a Form S1, something like their IPO in June of 2020, which obviously will take a lot of time for them to do if they ever need to raise money in a very short amount of time. And that's essentially what this S3 allows. It's kind of like an overhead where Nikola can decide, okay, in the next 3 years, let's say in 2023, all of a sudden they need more money. If they have that available, if they have shares available in this S3 filing, then they can essentially file this 424B3 filing and all of a sudden get access to those shares immediately with the SEC. And as you can see, that is exactly what Nikola did yesterday. They filed two of these filings, one for their S1, which was their 23 million shares of warrants and regular 53 million shares, and then another one for around 249 million shares of just common stock. So these are essentially different types of securities that Nikola had filed back in 2020, but essentially now because of the share authorization increase, they're actually able to issue these out to the market, and that is exactly what these filings show us. Now, this is not a bad thing at all because this allows Nikola to raise money immediately, potentially when the stock is up a lot, which obviously we've seen the stock is extremely volatile. So it's no surprise if at some point Nikola is up 40% and they decide to execute this offering, which will allow them to raise $400 million while not affecting the stock price all that much. As you can see, this is the essential definitive agreement that Nikola came into place with Citigroup to offer these shares. They're going to be issuing a 4 or 2.5% commission to Citigroup for these offerings, which is pretty normal for this kind of offering. And as you can see, they're using the shelf registration statement, which is the Form S3 that Nikola had filed just a few years ago, I think back in 2020 or in 2022, I'm not sure. But this is essentially what that is. Oh yeah, as you can see, April 1, 2022. And these are the kinds of securities that Nikola has the ability to offer over the next 3 years, which could be worth a total of $1.2 billion. But obviously to execute this, Nikola has to get a proposal and a prospectus out there for the SEC to look at. And that is exactly what this little statement right here is. But overall, I don't think the market is reacting too bad to this. And more importantly, the market is actually completely underestimating a new news that came out just a few hours ago, which is the fact that Nikola's Bosch partnership is getting even more strength in North America. What do I mean by that? Well, as you can see, Bosch is now investing $200 million to make fuel cells for hydrogen trucks in South Carolina. These are going to be fuel cell stacks, which are going to be manufactured in North America. And then Nikola could be one of the major customers for these stacks in time in 2023 and in 2024 when they roll out the Nikola Tre FCEV and the Nikola 2 FCEV. This is a very, very big deal, guys. Bosch has very little exposure to the North American market, and the fact that they're willing to invest this much money in North America means they see a big business opportunity in the space, and I'd be no surprise that Nikola is going to be one of the big beneficiaries of this agreement. Specifically because obviously Nikola already has agreements with Bosch to make fuel cell power modules in Arizona. And so these fuel cell stacks that are built in this specific factory are going to go directly into those power modules that Nikola is going to be making in Arizona. And as far as I know, Bosch or Nikola is one of the biggest customers Bosch has right now, at least for the fuel cell business in North America, which again is a great thing for both businesses because obviously the Inflation Reduction Act is showing us exactly how much investment we're going to see in the hydrogen space over the next decade. But as usual, guys, make sure to drop me a thumbs up if you found some value from this video. Let me know down in the comments section below your guys' thoughts on this news. I think overall this is a good thing for Nikola. It's not something of a big surprise because we expected Nikola to raise money. But as usual, let me know your thoughts.